you, Julie. What made you get involved in the Peace Walk?
Yes, thank you so much. I feel quite moved actually hearing about all of this again, and it's sort of taken me right back to January. And then I'm now thinking about all the things that have happened in the last year and all of that. And I just want to say to all of you, thank you so much for this wonderful space, because I've had a very difficult day with all of this, you know, coming up to the anniversary. And so as expected, this is exactly what I needed. So I just want to get that out to all of you, that I really appreciate you being here, because it's a wonderful space to be in right now. So yeah, look, you can already feel from both what Rahina and Judith have just said, the sincerity, the purpose, the meaning, the need. I mean, so when I'm asked to be involved in something, a lot of the time for me, it's about the people and the intention. And, I picked that up from kind of within like 5 minutes of speaking to Rahina and then Judith and meeting everyone that was involved. And as they've said, and I feel and still feel now, anybody that is willing to step up and step out into public and do things differently to what others were doing. There was a lot of noise. There was a lot of binary narratives. There was a lot of, you're either with us, you're against us. And there still is, right? I mean, 1 year on, it feels even more like that this week than it did even then. And so for people to kind of be willing to not do that, they're my people. They're my kind of people. So it wasn't difficult for me to say yes. And, and I'm so glad that I did. And I think that the way people kind of gathered around it also reminded me, and needs to remind all of you, that there's more good people in the world than not. And often what happens is that people are made to feel like they have to pick a side, or they can only be this or that, and you can't kind of hold all of these truths at the same time. And I just don't buy that. I just think, we have to be able to find ways to cut through that noise of people telling us what we should and shouldn't be doing, and follow our hearts and do the right thing. And when you're around other people that are doing that, it's honestly one of the most incredible things. So and I likewise didn't know these wonderful people before, but I feel like I've known them for a very long time. It's kind of like that. So I think yeah, I didn't need much persuading, and it just chimed everything with me. And on the days, and we'll talk about the actual walk perhaps after, but yeah, it was one of my best decisions this year, I would say, to be involved in this, and all of the kind of knock-on things that have come from it, and these friendships, they mean a lot.
Thank you very much, Julie. How wonderful that you also mentioned about friendships. I believe the cause of the first walk caused also good friendships, which encouraged the second walk, and more people joined. And it was such a movement. Everybody was kind of walking for the same action that they were trying to bring in. If you could answer me, how did you feel to be part of the Peace Walk? And how, in general, the experience of it felt for you, considering your faith?
Okay, so I'm not going to lie, the silent element of it wasn't always easy for me, because I love talking, and I felt a sort of overwhelming sense of wanting to share how I was feeling with other people. And so sometimes I found it hard. A couple of times I got told off for speaking, in a good way. Reminder, let's say a nice reminder that it was better if I didn't speak, let's say it like that. And but I think the one thing that I'd like to say that Judith started to touch on there was the reaction of the public. If you can try and imagine that we're walking down Whitehall, more than 1,000 people in silence, different backgrounds, different outfits, all of that. And it's really quite something for other people to see that. And I found the reaction of the public very moving, because yes, people were curious and all of that, but there was definitely a sense of almost like a sort of, I felt like a collective like relief of people seeing it and thinking, okay, so we're going to be all right. You know, there's all these people are together and they're walking and they're safe and nothing's happening to them and they're just doing it and they don't feel the need to shout. And, you know, and you would see, and I saw this on both of the walks, people of all ages, all backgrounds, clearly people from different parts of the world living here, tourists, whatever, young people taking out their phone as we do nowadays and filming it, like just almost like a sort of a natural reaction. And I found each one of those that I saw very moving, because I just thought to myself, first of all of those videos will be shared within their own, so on social media, on WhatsApp or whatever we all do nowadays. People will have kept it on their phone and then might even be looking at it now for all we know, right? As a reminder. And so I found that sense of it moving, especially because there's so much horrible stuff online. There's so many, you know, there's so much anger and aggression. And as we're seeing, and as Rahina reminded us, you know, 140 wars or something in the world. And, you know, so just this idea that people, their natural reaction was to film it and capture it, I found very moving. And you know, it's a good reminder for all of us also that whatever we do, we have to show up with the right intention, with sincerity, and the rest of it we can't control. It just kind of goes out into the world. And that was a very real example of that for me. And I found that to be one of the things that really touched me on the day, or both days, both of the walks that we did. I felt the same.
Thank you very much, Julie. I didn't participate the walk, but the energy of it, I can feel it. I am looking forward to hearing that there's going to be third one happening soon. I know that you offered a prayer during the silent walk. I wanted to ask you, how is the experience was different for you as attending the silent walk and also delivering the prayer and other forms of calls for peace?
Yeah, it's I was just reflecting on all of this again, as we've been listening to the various contributions here today. And so when I stood, I did the prayer and the second one, and it was in Parliament Square. And, you know, there's something really quite powerful about standing, I mean, for me as a Muslim, visibly Muslim woman, standing in Parliament Square in London with Big Ben in front of me and being able to say a prayer that means something to me, and in doing it in safety and with people around me and all of that. I mean, it's really quite something. I remember my heart was beating really hard when I was sort of waiting to go do my thing, and we were sort of standing in a line. You know, there's something, it feels it felt, and anything like that always feels like a responsibility. Also, it's an honor to do it. And so I sort of don't take that kind of stuff lightly. So, you know, and again, you say it, and lots of us were saying prayers, and it was very lovely to be able to say something that meant something to us, and then each individual person did that, as opposed to all of us kind of saying the same stuff. It was all very unique for each person. So yeah, I was very happy to do it, and it did, you know, it meant something to me, and it resonated with other people, and then people talk about it afterwards. And so, you know, if you picture that, if you weren't there and you try and picture it, it's really quite something, you know, to have a whole load of people in Parliament Square praying like that together at a time when this war is just getting worse and worse, and people are feeling so helpless, hopeless, angry, frustrated, you know, feeling let down by our own government, who weren't saying anything and aren't really saying much, you know. So it felt like we were kind of making a statement in a different way in the middle of Parliament. That's kind of how it felt to me. And so yeah, it was very meaningful for me. I just saw I just wanted to say that I was reminded, because recently I was doing a talk or sort of chairing a session, and someone mentioned this rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel, and when he walked on the Civil Rights March in Selma to Montgomery, Alabama, he he was asked, "Did you get a chance to pray?" And he responded by saying, "I prayed with my feet," which I kind of feel like that's what we were doing. And that's what also Rahina was kind of very eloquently talking about earlier, that it has to be about, like, it's really important for me also to pray on my prayer mat. I've got my prayer mat out now. I just prayed my sunset prayers. After this call, I'll go and pray again. I've got the house to myself for the first time in what feels like ages. I've got my candles on. You know, I will do that thing. I need it today. But also we have to pray with our feet, which is what we did that day, but in our actions. And so I really love that he said that. And it feels very relevant to mention that today. So I just looked it up to make sure I'd got my facts right, and I did. So yeah, I wanted to offer that the rabbi said at Selma, I prayed with my feet.